Welcome to toy-polloi.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi. Now, a little while back I was sent a big box of Action Man stuff to restore, and the main part of the restoration is the Seawolf, which you can see in front of me. Now, this Seawolf has seen better days. It's pretty battered and beaten and is missing quite a few pieces. So this restoration could end up taking quite a while, because already I've started to hunt and source for pieces for this Action Man Seawolf, and they're proving quite hard to find. So the first thing I'm going to do in this video really is going to give it a good clean and try and get a few of the basic bits up and running while I hunt for more pieces and more missing bits, and just see really how far we can get in the first video, because really finding parts is probably going to be the main part of this restoration. So first up, let's take a look at what we've got and see what we need to do. So the shell part of it is in not too bad condition. It's only got a couple of little bits that are broken on it. There's a little ring that's supposed to be on the front here that is broken. As you can see, there's one on the back there. There should be a similar one on the front. Now, the person who donated this to me had actually had a go at casting parts for it. So I've got here a few fins, the rear fin, and there's also a little bag of little bits that he's cast. And I might be able to use these to recreate the one on the front. If not, I have another idea for how we can fix that. Also, the cover, the little lift up sort of lid here, is the hinge is broken, which seems to be a particularly common problem on these old Seawolves. And then everything else that I've got, it's just pieces. So there's the sort of front periscope piece, there's the little back seat bit, I do have the bit here as well. That's obviously still in the box. Got the little air pumper thing, bits of it, but it's really just bits missing. So I think the first thing we're going to do is give this a good clean and try and sort of tidy it up a bit, because it does look pretty rough and ready. As you can see, this lid here is pretty beaten up. There's all sorts of paint and bits on it, and I reckon we can clean this up enough and might even be able to repair this. The main body section is just dirty, really. It's been sort of played with quite a lot. It's not too bad condition overall. It doesn't actually have any screws with it, so I need to find some screws. But as this is a toy vehicle, I'm guessing the screws will be very similar to Star Wars toys, and I have quite a lot of spare Star Wars screws lying around, so I should be able to use those to sort of replace them. So really, let's get the first things going, and we're going to give this a good clean. And as always, I tend to wash all of the toys that I get in some hot soapy water. That will remove most of the dust and dirt. If we look at this seat section here, you can see that's pretty filthy. So we give everything a good clean and dry it all up, and then any sort of final marks that are left on here, like little bits like this, we can clean off with lighter fluid. And to clean this dome, I'm going to use some T-cut. If you've watched my Star Wars restorations before, you know that T-cut's quite good for removing these sort of minor scratches. But a lot of it really looks like it's dirt. As you can see there, if I just rub on the inside, you can see it's actually just dirt. Most of it should just come off with a good wash. So let's get this all washed up, and then we can start on trying to fix some of the broken areas. After giving it a good clean, it's now looking an awful lot better. There's still a few scratches and marks all over it, but most of those are sort of just from play wear, and they're actually marks in the plastic. You can see a few here on the front. There's a couple of little sort of what look like sort of paint marks. These I will remove towards the end just with a bit of lighter fluid, and I'm not going to do them now because obviously there's quite a lot of work to do on this vehicle and a lot of sort of other bits that may cause new marks. So I think I'll just leave those for the moment. But as you can see, things like this seat look a lot better. All the dust and grime has gone, and even the sort of dome area is looking better. There's still scratches on this, but as I said, this will be cleaned off using some T-cut. It looks like I've got most of the dirt off the inside. There's still a bit more there. If you can see, it's coming off on my fingers. So I may give this a second clean. It's very hard to tell when you're sort of washing these things how much dirt you've got off, but it's certainly looking a lot better, and you can actually see inside it now. So we're getting somewhere with that. Right, before I go about mending anything, I'm actually just going to put this back together. When it arrived here at toy-polloi, it was already in pieces, but before I do the restorations, I want to get the body part back together because that will make my work a lot more easier. I did try to take this apart when I first got it, but it proves quite a difficult toy to get apart because it's held together by screws. You can see there are a few screw holes here. There's one at the top there. There's one actually hidden underneath this little bit of plastic here. There's another one at the front which is sort of hidden where the camera mount goes. So you need 3 screws to put this together, but it's also glued. If you look at the bottom, there's a seam along here. Now, I tried to prise this apart, and I actually got most of it prised apart. You can see that I've managed to sort of break the glue seam along there, but as I got towards this point here, it started to crack the body, so I decided it was best to stop rather than taking the whole thing apart. And if you look inside, that's actually where there's a sort of mounting point going on, and I didn't want to cause any more damage than was already on this ship, so I just left it as is. And it actually, just having the ship being able to be pulled apart that much is really all you need, because the only bit that's got to go inside the ship, well, there's 2 bits really, is the little weight section here which drops in the bottom, and that is not fixed in place because it should move up and down, and then the seat section. Now the seat section, with the ship in this sort of state, you can get back in place. It has some little tabs here that rest on either side of these panels, on either side of the seawall. So really all you've got to do is drop this in, and with it being partially unscrewed, you can actually just sort of slip this in and then position it so that it's, some parts of those are under and some parts are above. It's a little bit fiddly to show and do actually, but you can get it in place. Let me just do this. It might be the sort of thing I have to do off camera because just not quite enough room here to do it. Let me do this off camera and I'll show you how it should sit. There we go. That's actually a lot easier to do without the camera in the way. You have to clip it so parts of it are under the little panels at the side and parts of it are above it. There's a little part at the front end that needs to be above it. The sort of middle bit needs to be underside, and the part at the back needs to be on the top again. And once that's in place, it sits quite nicely. And the weight at the bottom can now rise up and can't actually fall out of place. So it's a fairly simple construction toy, but you've got to get it all right to get it to sort of get everything in the right position to get it to pop back together. Now this didn't come with any screws, but luckily, because this is a Palitoy toy, the screws are all the same for old Star Wars vehicles as well, and I generally keep a little bag of old screws from other restorations that I've sort of things that I've taken apart and don't no longer need. So I've actually got a few spare screws here, and we can screw the rest of this together. Now, as I said, there are only 3 screws needed, so luckily I have 4 here, and really it's just a case of dropping them into the little holes where necessary and screwing it back together. There are 2 final bits that actually sort of clip onto this ship to hold it in place. One is this sort of back little jet section which the rear rudder attaches to. Now luckily this ship came with that, so I can just clip that in place, and then there is a sort of area at the front where there is a camera mount and some gripper claws. Now this front mount is missing on this one, and it's one of the pieces that I'm trying to track down. I managed to find a couple of other bits for the front claws and camera mount section, but not this bit, so I'm going to carry on looking for that. If I can't find it, I'll see if I can work out a way of making a replacement, but for the moment I'm going to carry on hunting. Hopefully I should be able to find that. While screwing the ship back together, I also dabbed a small amount of super glue just along this seam here at the front, because there's no screw to hold this top section together and it easily pulls apart, and also a small bit of super glue just on the bottom sections here as well, just to hold it together. If you don't do that, then it does sort of tend to pop apart, and that's mainly because I've already sort of broken the glue that was there originally. If you don't break the glue, then you won't need to do that. As you can see, the ship is now sort of part back together, so we can start fixing some of the smaller issues. Now on this Seawolf, there's a tiny little ring snapped off here. If you look at the back section of the Seawolf, there is a ring there. There should be a similar one on the front. You can just see the peg part where the ring would be attached. Now normally I would try and sort of make a new version of that, and in this instance I would have used a small bit of technical Lego. As you can see here, this is a bit of, I don't know what you call these, but these are bits of technical Lego. And it's an almost sort of perfect replacement size for that little loop there. I would have fashioned that down, sort of shaped it a bit, taken off the really obvious Lego bits and shaped it so it's much smaller, and then made a version out of that. But when I was given this, I was also given a lot of pieces that had been cast in plastic to make replacements. So you can see here, I was sent the beginnings of a replacement little loop to go at the front there. So what I've done is I've started modifying that. I've actually drilled out the middle hole so that it matches the back one there, and now all I need to do is to shape this down, and then I'm going to gently file away some of the remains of this little broken one here, and we can glue that in place. But as I say, if I hadn't have had this, I would have used a bit of Lego and then painted it to match the same colour, because really Lego is a very good source for sort of bits and parts to make replacement things, and that would have looked just as good as the cast one. So let's get this one modified and we'll get that attached, and then we can start working on the fins at the back. So what I've done here is filed down the broken bit that was left on, so we've got a flat surface on the top, as you can see there. And I'm going to gently file in a little groove in there, and then I'm going to modify this bit so that there's a sort of a little peg sort of poking down that will fit in the groove that I cut there. So that when I glue that on, there's quite a lot of surface area for that to sit into, and hopefully that should sort of form quite a good fixing, and we'll have a nice replacement little hoop there. It's a little bit fiddly to do, but should prove quite a good result in the end. As I say, the Lego would have worked just as well, but it's quite nice to do it with these little cast pieces, because I don't often get little replacements like this to work with. So I'm about halfway through now. What I've ended up with is the little hoop. As you can see here, I've got a tiny little sort of peg sticking out the bottom of it, and I'm slowly working my way through the original bit of plastic on the top of the Seawolf here to make a similar sized little groove that this will then sit in, and then we can glue that in place, and that should hold it pretty firmly. So I've really just got to carry on filing away at that until I've got a similar sized groove, and once that's done, that little bit will be finished. So it's going to be a little slow process because it's a fairly awkward place to work on. I don't want to scratch the rest of the ship, so I've really just got to sit here gently filing away. I may get my Dremel out in a minute and have a little go with that, but I just don't want to cause too much damage to the rest of the ship while I'm working on it. So here I've got it all sort of ready to fit. As you can see, I've trimmed off quite a lot of this little cast bit, so there really is just a small little peg in, and I've done quite a lot of filing there on the front section, flattened it all down so that this now fits in pretty snugly, actually, just like that. It almost fits in like you don't need to glue it, but obviously I am going to glue that in place, and then that looks like a really quite a nice sort of replacement version of it. Obviously the Lego piece would have done just as well, and it would probably been a slightly easier fix. This is taking quite a lot of time just because there's a lot of messing around to get it to attach properly, but I think that's going to work quite well. So I'm just going to use a little bit of super glue, which is should be strong enough to hold this in place. I'm just going to dab a little bit in the groove on the ship, like so, just a small amount, and then I can squeeze this in place, and we'll let that set before working on the next part of the restoration. Now we can take a look at the rear fins of the Seawolf. Now these are often missing or often broken. Now with this one that I was sent, they were missing, but the guy who sent it to me had a go at casting some replacement ones. So you can see here I have various different versions of cast versions of replacement fins. Now these are pretty good, and I am going to use one of these to replace one on the side. There's one that's a pretty nice colour match. They're all varying different shades of plastic, but this one here is a pretty good colour match. Now the reason these fins break is because of the way they're attached to the ship. They have a little sort of clip section here. Unfortunately on this cast one you can't see, but there should be a gap between those two bits, and that's pushed in place here, and then it sort of clips into a little hole. But what happens over the years is those clips snap, and as you can see here, this is an original fin that was very kindly donated by Jean Morgan to this restoration. As you can see, the two clip bits are missing. So what I'm going to do for this restoration is I'm going to use one of these newly cast ones and slot that in place. It does need a little bit of modifying because that gap isn't there, it won't actually clip in place. So I'm going to gently trim off some of the little tab bits here until that fits. But we're going to try and repair this one and see if we can get that fitted, because I think more often than not people will have broken versions of these, so it'd be good to show you a way to fix those. So let's start off with the cast one. Now I've already trimmed up the edge of this because all of the ones that were sent to me look a lot more like this with excess plastic on. So I've trimmed it all up. Now this doesn't actually fit in the hole at the moment. If I just move Action Man out of the way, you can see it's slightly too big to fit in because the end of this should have a little bit of flex to it, and obviously it doesn't on this one. So I'm not going to cut out that middle bit because at some point I'd like to replace these all with original ones if I possibly can. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to gently trim off this end little tab, just using a knife here. Just gently trim that down. So there's only a tiny amount of it left, and hopefully then I can actually just fit this into the hole that's originally there, and it should be tight enough that it holds in place. So there you go, you can see I've just trimmed off those. Let's see if we can get that to fit in. There you go, and that fits quite nicely. So that's all I'm going to do for that one, is leave that one in place. It actually holds in pretty well. So now we can move on to the broken one on the other side, and we'll see how we can fix that. So the way I want to fix this is it's going to be a fairly simple fix, and it's actually made slightly easier because we have these sort of failed casts here. My plan is I'm going to trim off the end of this so that it's flat, because you can see where this has broken, they've broken at sort of odd angles. We're going to flatten that off, and then I'm going to drill a hole into the sort of the thickest part of the original fin and insert a piece of Perspex rod. This is just some Perspex rod I bought off eBay. I think this is 4mm Perspex rods. You can buy it in various sizes, but 4mm should be sort of thick enough to go in a little hole in there, and still leave a little sort of enough surface around once I've drilled a hole, and it'll still be strong enough once the Perspex is in. And then my original plan was to find a pen lid or some other bit of plastic that I could then slot over this Perspex rod to thicken it up to this size and then just slot it in place, and that should be easy enough to find a bit of pen or something like that that matches the diameter of this original fin. But because I have these odd old casts, I'm actually just going to chop off the end of one of these, and I'm going to use this because that is obviously the perfect size. But first thing we're going to do is let's flatten the end of this. It should be easy enough to do just with a knife because this plastic is fairly soft. You can just sort of trim it away. As you can see, it cuts very easily, and we just get that nice and flat. And then I'm going to drill a hole in so that we can insert the Perspex in. As you can see, it actually cuts. It's very soft plastic. It takes almost no effort to cut this. So here's the drilled hole in the end, and here's the Perspex rod. You can see that fits in pretty nicely. So what I'm going to do is glue a piece of that in there nice and firmly, and then by the time I've trimmed this one down and we'll drill a similar hole in, we can sort of replace the whole end. But as I say, a bit of pen or some other bit of plastic that sort of matches the same diameter would do just as good a job. You just need to strengthen it like this so that it doesn't just snap off again. Do be careful if you're drilling into small things like this. It's best to use a vise or something, but as I'm trying to film this, I'm going to do it on my desk here. I am pretty good and skilled with this, so I'm unlikely to hurt myself, but if you're doing this yourself, do be very careful. So now we have the two pieces ready. It's just a case of gluing some Perspex into the fin. I'm going to glue it into the good bit first, the sort of the original bit. I'm just going to drop a little bit of super glue in there. Is that enough? Like so. We're going to glue the Perspex in, and we'll let that set, and then I'm going to trim that down to be about the same depth as the other hole, and we'll glue that second piece in. But I want to get one bit glued in first just because it makes it easier to cut the Perspex. I'm going to use a pair of plastic nippers to cut the Perspex. You can do it with a saw or anything you like really, but this should work just as well, because really you don't need a tidy sort of end to it. I'm just going to use those, and it will crack and snap quite easily. So let's do that. Like so, and that's about all you need. You don't need a great deal because this has only just got to slot into the end here, and we'll glue that on, and then that should all fit in the Seawolf and should hold it quite firmly. Now that that's all glued, I'm just going to file down any sort of slight raised edges that there are along it. Because this is a sort of cast end, it's a little bit rough in places. If you were using a bit of other plastic, you may have to do this, but it might be you could find something that's a perfect fit. I still reckon a pen lid or something would do, but you can see there, that's a pretty good sort of fit. So we can now try this on the Seawolf and see if it see how snugly it fits in place. So here's the fin, and we'll just see if we can slot that in. Oh, that slots in quite well. It's maybe a little bit on the loose side. I may have trimmed that down a little bit too far. If that's the case, then just a couple of drops of super glue on either side of it. Let the super glue set, and that should tighten it up. So let's do that, because I think it'd be nice if it was a little bit on the tight side. So as you see here, I'm just going to drop a little bit of super glue on that side, and a little drop of super glue on that side, and we'll let that set, and it should make it a sort of little slightly lumpier on either side, and that will fit a little bit snugger in the hole there. The super glue has now had time to dry, and it goes quite hard and see-through, so you can't actually see that it's on there. We can now try again, see how tight that fits in. Hopefully that should be a bit better there, and that's much better. That's a much tighter fit. In fact, that's a slightly better fit than the one on the other side, which is still a little on the loose side. So I may add a little bit of super glue to that just to tighten that up, because I think that seems to fit better. So yeah, I'm going to do the same on that one, and we'll leave that as that then. So the next thing to do is the rear fin. Now again, these are pretty hard to find, but luckily with this restoration I was sent a whole bag again of cast bits. As you can see here, there's various different sort of attempts at casting it. Some are better colour matches than others, so I've just cut out and sort of tidied up the one that was the best sort of colour match. It may still be a little bit dark. There's one here that's a little bit greener. It depends on sort of what you want as the finish, but I'm pretty happy with the colour on this one, so I'm just going to slot this in place. Really, all of these bits seem to be incredibly hard to find, so the only way I've seen to get all pieces for this Seawolf is actually to buy a complete one, but obviously in this instance that's not really what I do, so I'm quite happy to use these cast ones for now. With the front periscope section, there is one very common issue, which seems to be that these little tabs that you can see here should have a little sort of flat surface on the underside of them that hooks under this sort of blue section on the front of the Seawolf, and these are more often than not snapped off. Now there's no real way to reattach something to this, because it's a very thin bit of plastic. You've got a hole going through the middle which needs to be there because part of the sort of periscope goes inside, so there's not a lot of space to attach anything to. So I think the only way to fix that is actually to, if I slot this in place like so, I'm actually going to put a bit of glue on the underside of this little tab here and actually glue this down, but I'm not going to do this just at the moment because there are other things that need to be done to this ship, and I don't want to glue this in place. I will do that just at the end. I'm also missing some bits to this sort of periscope section. You can see here I have a couple of parts of it, but there is some more bits that I think go on the inside and here. That's why I've got to do a bit more research, because I'm not really sure what is missing on this, as I'm going to have to search for those and see if I can find replacement parts for that periscope section. So this is where we leave the restoration for today, because I'm still having trouble finding a lot of the parts that I need to do this restoration. I've managed to find a couple more bits. I was given the front sort of hook section that goes, well, the front sort of claw section that goes at the front of the Seawolf. And I managed to purchase the little camera that slots into the front of that. So that's one less bit to find. I'm still missing one side of the hook, and also the little bit that mounts the this sort of claw section onto the front there. So that's one bit I do need to find. I also did manage to find the breathing mask on the very long hose, and some air tanks. So that's another good bit that I was after. And I managed to purchase that off a Action Man forum for a few pounds. So that was pretty good. And then of course we still need bits for the periscope. I need the attachment pieces for the hose that goes on the top of the dome there. I also need, there's a little bung bit that's supposed to go in these two little holes here, so that you can vary where the air goes when you blow into that. So it's just lots of bits really. And also the turret part here has a snapped hinge. So next time I'm going to look at seeing if we can fix that, or if I need to find a replacement version of this turret. And also then I'm going to start working on making some replacement stickers and getting those fitted on so that it looks a lot nicer. So if you've enjoyed watching this restoration video and would like to help out toy-polloi, then please check out my Patreon page. Details on that can be found in the description of this video. And if you can help me with parts for this Seawolf, then please do get in touch. And thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching toy-polloi. Subscribe for more great videos. You can also follow toy-polloi on Twitter and Facebook.